Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the feature race on New York Showcase Saturday at Belmont Park. Race number 5. We're going a mile and an eighth. It is the Empire Classic Handicap. $300,000 is the purse. Get those Belmont Clocker reports. Mike Welsh and his colleagues grade many of these morning workouts leading up to all of the races during the Belmont Fall Championship meeting. A perfect complement to your daily racing form past performances. Here's the field for the Empire Classic. It is a short field, but there are 2 quality horses in the race. Pat on the Back is a graded stakes winner. He just won the Kelso. He won the Empire Classic in 2018. He is doubtlessly a good horse. Mr. Buff ran in the Woodward last time out. He is a legitimate listed stakes horse on his own day. And there are a couple of other nice ones rounding out the field. Timeform U.S. Pace Projector could be key in here because we know Not That Brady's very fast. We know Mr. Buff probably wants the lead. And maybe those 2 compromise themselves just a little bit and sets things up for Pat on the Back.
It's possible that Not That Brady could affect Mr. Buff in this race. We'll see. It's not like, Mr. Buff needs the lead to be effective. He has shown that he could win without it, but he does want to be forward.
Blue Brass Cat Smile's not going to make the lead. He's going to try to come from off of it, as he did most recently at Belmont on September the 19th. He was a gigantic price getting through his non-winners of 2 other than condition. He is the number 4 in this race on the outside, and he kicks them all down.
He caught a contested pace in front of him, and he just came running to go by these horses to pull off the upset. This breaks a 16-race losing streak for this horse, but he's pretty good. He's pretty consistent, Dan. He wants distance. All those things are good for him. If he wins this race, it will be back-to-back big upsets, though.
Dynamax Prime is the number 2, and he ran pretty well against Mr. Buff, 2 and 3 back in the Evans Shipment and the Saginaw Stakes. He just wasn't as good as Mr. Buff on those days. Last time out, he was in for the 62.5 tag. Those were some nice open optional claimers. And again, Dynamax Prime ran a really good race. He is a consistent performer, but you kind of get the feeling that he needs to run a career best, and he might need things to run to actually fall his way from a pace standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, he was claimed for 12.5 earlier this year, but there's no denying that since Rob Atras has taken over his training, this horse has really taken a step forward. I mean, he's in career best form right now. He has those 2 buyer tops in the Saginaw and the Evans Shipman, 2 and 3 starts back, where he was second to Mr. Buff. And listen, he ran well in those races. He was no match for Mr. Buff either time. Maybe the difference here, though, is, Dan, Not That Brady goes fast. Mr. Buff gets hooked up with him. If he gets a contested pace, this horse will be running at the end.
Pat on the Back won the Empire Classic last year, as I alluded to, and Jeremiah Englehart's done just a fantastic job nursing this horse through various problems with his feet to turn him into a millionaire, and he became a millionaire with his victory in the Grade 2 Kelso last time out. And these were some nice open horses he beat. And as we turn into the stretch of the Kelso, Pat on the Back's on the outside. He worked out a really nice trip. That's Prince Lucky on the lead, who's a nice horse, and he just runs him right over. This was a solid performance for Pat on the Back, a gigantic 103 buyer speed figure. Despite his win in this race last year, do you have concerns about the mile and an eighth?
I mean, maybe it's not his best distance. They don't try it that often with him, but I mean, you look at the last 2 times they went this distance with him, he was bang up both times in those races. He clearly can get this far. He ran great last time. He got a great trip in that race, but he also really ran in there. And if he runs that kind of race again, he's just going to be really hard to beat.
Now, Mr. Buff loves a mile and an eighth. This is kind of his distance, 6 for 9 lifetime on the main track. Winner of the Evans Shipman 2 starts back. You mentioned that he was able to sit from off of the pace. Kind of a new dimension for Mr. Buff that day. And he was just thrown to the wolves and the Woodward on the lead. Just draw a line through that race. That's not the race you want to rate Mr. Buff. His speed is very dangerous. And, I would just send him here.
I would too. If Not That Brady goes from the outside, then you could always just let him go. But I think they will send this horse in here, and we'll see what happens. Since they've concentrated on stretching him out last summer, he's just gotten on a really big roll. You mentioned that he, ran in that Grade 1 last time. He also tried the New Orleans Handicap back in March. Outside of those 2 races, Dan, he has won 6 of his last 8. The only 2 times he's lost is when Pat on the Back beat him. So he's got something to make up on Pat on the Back, but he's a very dangerous horse in here as the second choice.
Not That Brady, the beaten favorite in the Albany 2 starts back. And going into that race, I think the question was the mile and an eighth. Sure, he ran second in the Grade 3 Withers earlier this year at a mile and an eighth, but he was getting tired at the end of that race, and he just didn't stay in the Albany, I didn't think. Rudy ran him on the turf last time out. I'm not sure that's a great sign. And I wonder if taking off the blinkers is a sign here that Rudy's going to try to get this horse to relax by sitting. And I'm not sure sitting and chasing Mr. Buff is the way to the winner's circle.
I agree with that. We'll see if they decide to try and change tactics with him. I don't know if that will work. He's a pretty solid horse. He's got a lot of speed. He's run some nice races. Don't really like this distance for him, though.
Pick time for the Empire Classic. We agree in here. Pat on the back's just in too good form to ignore, and I think he's just going to work out a trip. I think he's going to sit third behind Mr. Buff. I think he's going to sit just off Not That Brady, and I think he'll attempt a similar sweeping bid as last time out. I went 3-4.
Yeah, I just think he's going to get the right trip as well. Listen, I'm not going to be shocked if Mr. Buff beats him, but Mr. Buff's going to really have to run, I think, to beat this horse. I went 3-4 as well.
Empire Classic Handicap, one of several nice stakes races at Belmont Park for the Empire Breds on Saturday. Race number 5 is an approximate post time of 2:32 Eastern. Good luck.